All right, welcome. It is a double dip of Bass Talk Live today. We kicked things off this morning with Todd Castledine, and then Fred Scalish jumped in a 2-hour show. This was originally going to be the only BTL of the day. Got Scott Palmer from the Bass Tank, who has set up my boat for the last 5 years now.
Yeah.
For the Bassmaster Opens. We did a live. We're at Shawnee Twin Lakes out here in Oklahoma. It's about 20 minutes from my house. It's about an hour from Scott's house. He actually took my boat that's been rigged at the Bass Tank for the past 4 days. Actually, it was 1 day, and then we had an ice storm. Yeah. He was nice enough to bring it down. So we've got Scott on the water. And here's what we're going to do. Last year we came out and we kind of did a walkthrough of setting up side imaging, of going through your unit and getting it dialed in. I do this every single spring with Scott, where the Bass Tank rigs it, some of the stuff that I want, some of the stuff that you recommend, and then we get on the water and we spend 20, 30 minutes to where you dial it in, you make sure we're pointing in the right direction, you make sure there are some settings that are, so I said, like I've always said, it's the Bill O'Reilly, screw it, we'll do it live.
Yeah.
So this is literally what you're going to get. The guy who's holding the camera, give me that camera right there, is none other than the one and only Austin Cranford. There's Austin's brand new boat that's sitting out there. It's so pretty. He said he doesn't even want to wrap it. Scott at the Bass Tank rigged all of Austin's stuff as well. So I have no idea how this is going to go. We got a brush pile right out here. This is the first time that I have seen the 16-inch Garmin unit that I have on with the transducer, with a new mount on it, a 0-degree mount. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Scott, and we're going to go through a setup. I have never had this graph on. I have no idea what the settings are on it. And then we'll flip it around. I know, Austin, you had some questions about your stuff. Then, Scott, you can jump in Austin's boat. We'll set it up over the next 45 minutes, and hopefully you guys can learn something when it comes to setting up your graphs, to why Scott does things the way he does things, and help you catch more fish on the water. So, all right, have at it, Scott.
All right. Well, Matt, you've been running the 12s, and those are really good units. We've seen a move towards these 16s. I'm personally running a 16, and I see why. After having the 12 and then going to the 16, I question why I didn't do it sooner. And we'll get into more of that, of what you're having to relearn. But let's go through the setup right here. And so right here, we have, you can see kind of a darker screen right now. You seen that okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we got our beam icons, and just some stuff up here. We need to do some initial settings from this standpoint. The grid layout, you know, I'm not a fan of it. Some people are. So
hold on a second. Hold on a second. I got to, I'm mirroring my screen. I don't want to mirror my screen. All right, that should be better. We're back to no screen mirroring. Okay, it was all backwards, which would not have been good. It would not have been good for the recording. I looked at it and it was like 7. I was like, oh boy. So okay, we're good.
All right, let's start that over here. So. Yep. So like I was saying, with this grid layout, you can kind of see the faint lines there. I'm not personally a fan of it, but some guys like it. That is absolutely a personal preference. So I'll go through and set it up the way we typically do, and then we'll, like you and I always do, we'll just kind of work it backwards.
I can tell you right now, keep the grid on. I love the grid.
Okay, so there you go. Perfect. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and go into options, and let's go into our Sonar setup, and let's come in here to our noise reject. It's set to low right now. Some guys like running this really high, and you can see the difference of how clean that gets. But something you have to understand, when that goes into high noise reject, it actually adds a lag. And if you threw a bait out there, you would see the difference. Compared to turning noise reject off, you can almost see the screen moving, the fuzz, but you're a lot more in real time. So we're going to do something that you've never had the opportunity to do, is I'm going to set up 2 settings, 2 presets. One that's a good, clean screen, everything, and then one that is what I'll call hot. And that's actually more where I fall in the category. I run a really hot screen, but it'll be a preset. You push one button and you can jump between the 2. Do the same thing when you go into perspective as well. So I'm going to have all these things set up for you, a couple button pushes, you're back there, and then you can tweak from there and always revert back to where we started today. So really cool feature.
Explain what noise reject is.
So noise reject, let me jump out of here real quick. So let's turn our gain way up here.
And I would turn it into landscape. I've been messing with it. If I turn it into landscape, for some reason my camera is not accepting landscape. So we have landscape. Is that better, guys? Let me know in the comments. Do you see that? Does that look better as far as landscape mode there? Because to me, it shows that it's only half a screen. And then also while you're there, pull a rod out. There's a rod with a minnow on in there. I know it's a secret bait. I don't want to give up the minnow too. But here in that rod box, there's one with a minnow, and that way when you're working on stuff, Austin can be chucking it out in front. All right, we're good to go. Back to it, Scott.
Okay, so I've turned the gain up pretty high here. This is pretty extreme on the gain, and you can see the fuzz right here. I turned the noise reject off completely. So what noise reject is going to do is it basically is a filter. So you can see the difference right there when we go to high. So that's the highest level it'll go, and it's basically telling the computer that chips inside to filter some of that trash out of it. One reason why I don't specifically like it being on high is because I want to see everything. I want to see everything, and I want to use my brain as my computer to say, okay, that's something I'm interested in. The other side is I feel like it doesn't narrow the beam, but it makes, when I'm on the edge of the beam, it makes it softer. Austin, you got a rod? Can you see if you can hit this with the... So you can see how slow that's falling. Now that's obviously a smaller bait, so it's going to fall. All right, so now if we turn our noise reject to off,
make a cast.
Yeah, go and make a cast. You can see how much faster this is falling. And that's a lot more in real time. And so if we had a fish that was reacting, sometimes we need to know what that fish is doing. All right. Sorry, we drifted. Hold on.
This is like, there you go. We'll try to.
There you go. There we go.
There it is.
And you can see how much faster that falls from that standpoint, and how much brighter that's showing up. And that's complete noise reject off. Okay. And so where that really comes into play, in my opinion, is when we're out here throwing out here at 90, 100 feet. It's a lot easier to see it, and that's why I like the noise reject. For my own personal boat, I run it off. Now, some guys run it high, and I do tell people, when you're first getting set up, go and run it on high. It's okay to run it on high as you can go up to hard targets, because I'm wanting you to, when I teach people to go learn, someone brand new to LiveScope, go find a bridge piling, something very, very hard with a very hard return, and then I can see corners on it. I can orient myself from that standpoint because it gives me a target that comes up out of the water. And so people have a hard time, I noticed as I talk to people, we just see slick calm. We don't know that this tree is there and what it looks like. So get something that comes out of the water, so when I'm seeing on the screen, I can orient it correctly, in my head, so that when I come up to a target in the future, I know, okay, this is my bright side over here, this is the shadow, and you know where to present your bait to the fish or to the target, the brush pile, or anything else.
So what have I been running my noise reject on off, probably most likely?
You've been running yours on low.
Okay.
So yours has been on low, and that gives just a little bit of a filter. That's not bad. It doesn't slow it down completely. Ghost reject, same thing. You see, we're running a 0 degree, especially we're coming off this curve right here. You can almost see the beams themselves. That's what these are.
So point out the beams then that you're talking. So you're talking about the transducer that is 3 beams that stitch together to make one picture.
And so we can see this right here. Come on, this. Come on. It's cold. My fingers are cold. Just hit pause. You can see it right there. You see that line? And then it stitches right there.
Yep.
That is a 15-degree cone.
Okay.
So we've got 3 15-degree cones, 1, 2, 3. And then we've got 3 more 15-degree cones. And then we've got 3 more. Each one of those makes up a total of 45 degrees for a top of the water column, behind the boat, 135 degrees at a 20-degree wide cone. Each one of those stitches right there, and this is where you'll see if you can kind of see it starburst a little bit right there.
Yep.
And actually, I'll show you this real quick. I'll exaggerate this. You see how I'm breaking the bottom?
Holy cow! Yeah. Okay, so that's your beams that you're seeing.
Correct. That's the beams. And so all of those are stitched together. And if you ever see a bottom like this, a little troubleshooting tip, your focus has gotten it right. Now, typically run that in auto fresh. So it's always
okay. So you hit auto fresh and all those beams are out there, but it's stitched together now.
correct. And it's constantly making adjustments.
And you can see a little bit right there.
Yep.
And maybe a little bit right there.
And this is why when you're going along, your bait's coming through the water, sometimes all of a sudden it'll move up or down just a little bit because it's crossing the beam, and it's because it's hitting it at different angles, and so it's seeing it differently. You know, it's looking at it this way, then looking at it this way. If I was right here and there was a target right here and I changed my head position, it's going to look like it's higher. And that's the same thing the transducer is saying. As that bait's coming across, a different beam is hitting at a different angle, so all of a sudden it steps up or down a little bit.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes fish will disappear there as well. They literally are right there in the middle of that. Just know they're still there.
Little side note there.
Yeah,
so
side
back
notes.
so that started with
Noise reject.
noise reject.
Yeah.
So
all right, let's just start up here at the top.
Yep.
So we'll go to appearance. Color scheme is amber. This is just a typical color that's probably most common for sure. Color gain right now is set to default. I run this up, and this is where it really starts burning. I run mine up in the 90s. You'll notice you lose a little bit of bottom. So if those fish get locked on the bottom, I do run this down just a little bit. But
or if they're totally suspended fish that are in the top part of the water column where you don't care about finding bottom hardness or being able to pick something out that's sitting on the bottom.
correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And so I'll run this up. I run mine around 90
Okay.
from that standpoint. So then we'll go back here.
You're doing a good job of fighting through the cold, by the way.
Yeah,
You're doing a
we're
fantastic job.
Yeah, I apologize for the sniffles here.
So what that's going to do, though, is it's going to create a little bit of fuzz on the screen.
Correct. It really exaggerates. Austin, you still have that bait on your hand? Yep. So I think our noise reject, I left it to low.
There it is. Let's go a little bit more so it's
So
let's go to 60 just to exaggerate it. All right. There it is.
See how
right
much
there.
brighter that is now?
Yep. Holy cow, yeah. Much bigger, much brighter. And that's because you bumped up that noise reject.
Not the noise reject, the color gain.
Okay,
That
so put
color-
it all the way down and have them make a cast, and I want to see what it looks like
So now let's come back to
the color gain.
all right. So the color gain was on default.
Yep.
And that brings it back down to 50. And
Okay.
this is a cleaner screen for sure.
Okay.
But now let's make another cast with it.
Yep, there it is.
You see how it's a little bit drabber now.
Yep.
Once it gets in, sure, it's still bright, but you see the difference.
Yep. It doesn't pop as much. But now the screen looks a little cleaner.
Yeah.
But as you...
I can do this in real time.
There it is.
There we go. So
Okay. So you like to set that
then
fairly...
You see as I lower that, you see the difference there?
on the bottom specifically. So you're up. So look at what we're looking at is this bottom hardness, this bottom lightness. And as you go down, you'll see how that...
It
Yeah.
cleans that up.
Yep.
And you see his bait hovering right there. Now watch what happens when you see how much brighter that just pops out. Nothing has
Yep.
changed except the color gain.
Yep. So as a rule of thumb, you like to keep it high.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think you'll see a lot of good scopers on the Elite Series and MLF that keep it fairly hot to where it looks like a dirty screen instead of a black screen, even if it could
correct.
be a black
We're just not there with the technology yet to have all of this disappeared and just have your bait out there. And part of that is because think about just the little bit of ripple right here. It's going to pick that up. So if we do, let's exaggerate, and we'll talk about this here in a second. But you can actually see it's not quite windy enough. But when I exaggerate the install depth, you're actually seeing that's actually the water. Let's go see if we can go further. What was I doing in my life? I'm never going to recommend to do this because it's a major offset. But you can see how much lower this is getting.
Yep.
Austin, flip it out there real quick.
Here, I'll go straight in front. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Now this is calm enough in here, but usually when I exaggerate it that much, and again, we're not going to be putting this install depth at 5 feet. That's just ridiculous. But you can actually see the water coming across the top of it. That's when you know you're really, really dialed in. So, so let's talk about install depth actually. So normally, by default, it's gonna show up to be 1. What I always recommend 1.5 to 2, somewhere in that. And this is something I cannot tell you on your boat unless I'm in it, specifically where to set it. Set it somewhere between 1.5 and 2, but go out there and play with it. So let's just split the difference. Let's go to 1.8. And now go ahead and make a cast. You're doing a really good job casting over our shoulder. And you can see you pretty well hit that, you saw that hit the water pretty well instantly.
Yep. So what we're looking at, see if you can put one right on it. What we're looking at is, can you see it on the very top of the screen when it hits? You missed it. It's going to require Austin hitting it. Yeah. You're usually 10 out of 10. That should be good.
We also has no control of the trolling mode right now.
We also have it set like really shallow. So he's casting out of it. So there you go. Yeah, I know. That should hit it. Boom. Yeah. See it right there? You saw it as soon as it got in the water, which is key.
And the further you push that out there, you know, typically you should be able to see your bait hit the water at 100 feet. Or pretty dang close to it. And that is key when you're targeting those fish out there at distance, as you guys know from that standpoint.
Okay. So explain what that offset actually is. Like, I don't understand what that means. Like, I know you were typing in those numbers, but does that affect like how the beam is looking up?
It does. So you can see right here, so basically it's trying to offset from the surface of the water how far down the transducer is, because the transducer, you can see these white lines right here.
Yep.
And think of this as a picture frame. And then the LiveScope itself is a picture. So if you slide a picture into a picture frame, you can actually have room to move it over one side or the other to maybe cover up part of the picture. Does that, I think that makes sense?
Yes.
And so with this, and I can show it to you real quick.
I'm just trying to get over where it's a little less windy. We literally almost drifted into that dock. That's a good dock, by the way.
You can see this right here.
Holy cow! What did you just do?
I screwed it up, but it's okay. I'm showing you a point. So this black spot, that's outside of the LiveScope transducer range, right? So our 135-degree arc starts right here on this edge, and it goes up here, and it goes all the way out here.
Okay.
So if I would perfectly put that in there, so let's.
I know.
As soon as you get it, I'm gonna show you, because I think this will be. I think this is probably.
It's gonna spin us, and then it'll set up. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine.
Just don't want to run into Austin's brand new boat.
It'll be all right.
Oh, there were some fish. Holy cow! I'm still running the old Ultrex. Oh, that's the other thing. So, mine spins a little bit more because I've never
calibrated.
Yeah, and I don't. And my thing that calibrates, it's been dead for like a year and a half. So that's why it spins so much.
Okay. All right. Well, we will get it.
Okay. So back to it.
So let's do something here. So if we turn this to auto stabilize, that means it's trying to automatically adjust itself, and this is typically how most people run it. So if I turn this off, you can see it's going to stop making adjustments. As that moves, that bottom's going to rock up a lot more.
Okay.
Because again, same thing as when it was hitting the fish at different angles, it's hitting the bottom at a different angle.
That would explain why when you get in other people's boat that have the exact same unit, it looks different on some of them because they're most likely running it on auto, whereas I'm not.
Correct. So in this setup right here, what was I doing? Let me go back into this. So let me show you something right here. So as I start going down,
pitch angle is
pitch angle. You can see where I've reached the edge of the actual LiveScope transducer. That's as far as it can see, right? So I've got black there. If I line that up perfectly with that white line right there,
okay,
I'm still going to run off the edge back here. You see the bottom is no longer running straight.
Yep.
That means that I'm actually not encompassing, as I start running that up, look how much of that is not actually in that picture.
Yep.
Still going, still going, still going, still going. Finally, right there. So that means this picture frame right here, when I have LiveScope set up perfectly, that means their LiveScope signal is actually outside of that picture frame. That's why it's imperative on that install depth, going back to that. Let's turn this on automatically so we can do this. Again, let's exaggerate this. You see how it brings us down?
Yep.
So I still have pictures out of it. So then with the mount we're running down here, we need to make adjustments to get that pitch angle just right to be able to hit the bottom of the water. So we're running this year, we're running the Fish Obsessed mount for you. And I love that mount because it allows us to just make adjustments up and down. And every time I click up, I can click the transducer one down to offset the angle as we're rotating up.
Okay.
From that
Did you know any of this stuff, Austin? All right. So set mine up then on how that needs to be set up then, because it's obviously not.
So let's go right here, and then I'm going to pull the troll motor up. And I want to do something. Okay, so initially we just set it up here, right like this. So now what we're going to do.
You got the back?
Well, that's not going to work at all, right? So what we do is we rotate this forward here. And this thing already comes with the notches built in. So there's this factory notch. And then, so this right now is back and forward. So we were down here and it was all kicked, and then I rotated up and it was like this. And then I negatively offset the transducer to match. So now let's drop back in the water.
That's good timing because we're about 6 feet from Austin's boat right now.
Perfect.
Okay. Whoa, that looks, what the heck is that?
So you can see now we're up in 10 feet of water. So you can see we're getting.
But what's this whole thing?
Well, that's the bottom reflection. We'll need to calibrate it. Every time we make an adjustment like this, we want to calibrate that to get rid of this. This is also doubling the. There, it disappeared. I made it disappear.
No.
Right? Put a Band-Aid on. Austin, you have a bait in front of you?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is where tweaking it, and like on my boat, I set it up, I'm running a little bit longer shaft this year, and mine's, instead of being straight out, is actually 45 down with the transducer out, and I played it straight down, everywhere, and that's where I found the best picture return on mine. That's what that mount gives you the ability to do, is really tweak on it from that. You have a lot more ability to fine tune this than you have in years past. So, all right. So we set up the transducer, we'll run it like that. Like I said, we need to calibrate this realistically to get the best image back. We'll go through their other setup, then we'll calibrate it, and then we'll finish fine tuning that transducer. So gain, we're not going to run gain that hot. Gain, I typically run that 75.
That's more of a personal preference.
It is absolutely
what you like your screen. Do you like more black screen? Do you like a brighter screen? What are you used to seeing? That also varies based on water clarity, how many particles are in the water, how much little fish, bait you want to see, what you can see through it. I'd say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, anywhere from 68 to 75 is within the range that 99% of guys run it.
100%, 100%. And this is what I was telling you, I'm going to set one up that's really hot, because I've been playing with a gain that's up here. It's just almost insane.
Holy cow.
But Austin, make a cast. If you can, over our heads. You see how insanely bright that is? Now here's what's really crazy, and hopefully we'll get to a spot where we can go see a fish. When you see something glowing out here, it is absolutely, it takes a bit to get used to seeing it that hot.
Is that yours right there, Austin? Holy cow. Yeah, that looks huge. Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of it that hot.
Yep.
Just because I haven't looked at it like that.
And I totally understand. Most people don't. So
I keep mine at 72.
yeah, okay. And that's perfectly acceptable because this is a personal preference. You either have to look through the trash and see, you know, for the brightest, which is kind of where my brain goes, or you say, no, I want to soften that and basically have a little bit blacker screen, and then things, you know, contrast a little bit more from that standpoint. So that is absolutely personal preference.
Okay.
From that standpoint.
All right, what's next? And we can come back in after the show and finish tweaking it. I just wanted to get the generals because Austin also has some issues like where you think maybe you're like a degree or two off. So then we'll hop in Austin's boat and I'll give him the mic.
And that's why we do this. You know, we rig to the shop and we look at it based on the way we can see it there. We do this day in, day out, and for most people, it's going to be 99% perfect.
Yep.
A guy like Austin, a guy like yourself that does this for a living, been around it for a long time, you know, like I want this offset just a little bit more. I'm left-handed, and so this is the other thing, just for people to think about transducer on the left or right. I'm left-handed, I cast left-handed, and if my transducer's on the right, it's hard for me to naturally come into that beam. And so I do a lot of where I'm missing it because my natural arc of my cast doesn't come into it. You know, when I'm making long casts, I'm gonna throw left-handed.
Yep.
So I put my transducer on the left because that just naturally flows into that arc, you know, on the left side, because it is a cone, even though it's 0 degree, there is an offset because those beams are stacked, right? They track out. So left side, come into it naturally. If I'm on right-handed, I probably want on the right side.
Okay.
Because I naturally cast that way.
All right. Yeah, that's highly advanced there. So
okay. So the beam icon, we're going to turn that off. You don't need that.
What is the beam icon?
So this little circle up here.
Yeah, it shows you the direction you're casting.
And it's never accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what usually covers.
So we've gone through this. The color limit, run it off very minimally. Do you ever run that?
Okay.
But if you ever do, like you can see where start. Yeah. Realistically, you're never going to run that more than 10 to 15%.
Okay.
If you ever do, I just have it default off.
Okay. Keep going.
All right.
I got some other questions now.
Yeah, the layout, reverse range. This is one. So right here, I've run that to minimum.
So that sees how far you can see behind the boat, but it also impacts your forward range the further you run it behind the boat.
Correct. And a lot of this, again, if we were in 100 feet of water, this beam goes off the page, right? So it runs off here. So the deeper you are, the further behind the boat you can see.
Yep.
But what I want to do is I don't really care. You know, some people want this.
That might be a difference if you're on the Great Lakes. You're vertically dropping on fish that you're seeing. You've got current that's pulling your bait behind. You want to be able to see when you're dropping on them.
That's absolutely.
You're on a super clear lake where the fish have a tendency to use the boat for shade. You want to see what's. I'm serious.
No, you're absolutely right. 100%.
You have fish that are a school of fish that's coming towards you. They swim under the boat. You want to see if you can figure out which direction you just spin it in and find it.
100%.
Okay. So what? Okay, so I'm seeing this. This is the ghost tree.
Yep.
Can we work on that? So
with a 0 degree, it's really hard to get that ghost tree going on a bottom composition like we've got in this shallow of depth. It's just the difference of the old 32 though. You would see that ghost tree and it'd be a blind spot. With a 34, the way the beams cross themselves, you just fish through it.
So will this go away in deeper water?
100%.
Okay, so it's because we're in 10 foot of water here
and we're kind of looking uphill.
So if you have the 34 with this, you're going to see this.
Sometimes this is something that comes and goes. There's anyone who tells you they can absolutely get rid of it. Sure, I can get rid of it right now. We just go out to deeper water.
Good question. Explain what a ghost tree is.
Okay.
Actually.
All right. So the ghost tree is this little artifact right here. And it got the nickname the ghost tree because it looks like a tree coming up and it's got a branch. But like we were talking about with the beams earlier, basically if you notice, we're in 9 foot of water, and guess where it's at? 9 feet. So it's the beam coming down and then it's coming back and hitting itself. That's literally where the two beam signals are running into each other. And that's why this guy up here is running out and he's coming back and hitting himself. What is that?
Holy cow.
Hey, you should
get up there, Austin.
Yep.
Here, we'll see if Austin can catch that and we can see it.
Catch it. Catch that drum. I only have the unit set up. Good luck.
I would agree with you. Yeah, he's in the bottom. All right, back to it. That could have been. We got some stuff, and you might be able to go catch one. Okay, back to it, Scott.
All right. So essentially what's happening is, again, the beams are just running back into themselves. And with us being in shallow water and we're kind of running up a little bit hill, that's essentially what's happening. And the harder the bottom, the worse that is. If you're on a ledge or looking into a ledge, you're really going to get it.
Okay.
When we were out there in that little ditch, it really wasn't prevalent. It was really very, very light. But again, running a 0 degree, the beams have the ability to go and come back on themselves. When it was 8 degree, they would go and they would kind of pass themselves, so it was a lot softer.
I'm setting a timer. You have 1 minute to explain what a 0 degree is. I'm serious, just because we've mentioned it so much.
Okay.
But this could go into you could do an entire in-studio show on 0 degree.
Right. So the very basic element of a 0 degree versus an 8 degree, which is what it came with, was the head of the trolling motor was this big and an 8 degree offset. So transducer was literally slanted 8 degrees. As it went out, not only was it 20 degrees wide and 135 degrees this way, but then it was tilted 8 degrees this way as well. And so as you're throwing out there, your bait was coming back, and it was really hard, a lot harder to track, because you would change, again, those beam angles, right? And so my bait would jump a lot more. A 0 degree literally just turns that where the transducer is straight on.
Do that with your arms again, like, because that's an awesome. So do it straight. So do the standard.
So the 8 degree was like this.
Okay.
I don't know if that's truly 8 degrees, but
properly installed, there was an 8 degree tilt in it.
Right, with the factory bracket.
Yep.
And then a 0 degree mount literally changed this just like this.
Okay.
And so it actually be this.
The 8 degree made it easier to find your bait, though, but harder to get your bait and the fish on the same track.
I agree. Yes. Yep. 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
So what else do we have to set up in here?
So the other thing is I want to get rid of some of the overlay data.
Yep.
So your depth. Do you care about depth?
No, because I'm looking at this and I know how deep it is. You know how deep you are, right? I also don't care about what time it is, because if I can see the time up there, it just freaks me out in the tournament. Yep. So I make sure that I can't see the time.
Do you care about water temp or voltage?
I do care about water temp, and I don't care about voltage, because I have a little handy voltage thing, and with the pro guides, I should have absolutely no issues on trolling motor or electronics.
So now we've really cleaned this up, and I see a lot of guys that I see run this with all that data. I'm like, get rid of that. Well, I need to know my water depth. Okay, Austin's back on it again.
Oh, is that a bass? You ever done this before? Is this going to be harder to find since the settings aren't dialed in yet?
Yeah.
You can kind of see it.
Okay, there we go. Not a bass.
Not a bass.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, see,
it is
see
a
the
bass.
tail kick, kids?
Oh my gosh.
Get you some of that, bud. Oh my God. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, that's a bass, 100%.
That's like a 600.
Yeah, well, that's a big one.
And you can see the tail kick, and that fish is turning around here. But you can see the tail kick. And you see the separation in the tail?
Yep.
That's a big indicator of that being a bigger fish. The further that tail is separated from the body, the bigger that fish is.
And I can see, you can see through the ghost tree this time, which is massively different. Holy cow. Yeah, that's a good one. He sees, he gonna turn? Nope. No, that was cool though. We got a really good clear picture of him turning to watch your boat. You're about right on it. All right.
And you can see as we're out here deeper, this ghost tree has softened up a lot.
Yep.
And again, like you just saw, you can fish through that with a 34. The 32 was much more difficult. It was much more prevalent. It would create it. You would actually, this little spot right here would be just a complete blind spot. And my crappie fishermen hated it because guess what? Using that long rod, that
Mhm.
was about the spot you would need it to be set up from that standpoint. So we've got our gain set to 72 right there. Let's just jump through this real quick. Color gain, we're up at 87%. Color limit 0, 0. Layout, we've gone through all of this.
Yep.
Noise reject. Again, I like it off, but you can see what happens.
Go ahead and put it on low for me. I like it on low.
So that's what it would look like on high.
Yeah, no, that's too clean.
It's too clean, in my opinion. It's too slow. Everything is too soft.
It's similar to how guys run side imaging. A lot of good guys on side imaging like to jack their stuff up to where it's really bright, but it looks cluttered. But once
Yep.
you understand how to read it, you get a lot more feedback and information on it
And
because it's filtering out less.
correct. And a lot of it also has to depend, especially like on side imaging, how far away. You know, when we did this show, we were talking about if I run my contrast too high, everything that's close to the boat gets blown out. But if I'm looking out there at 8,500 feet, then I don't care because I need those to be brighter anyway.
Yep.
And so it kind of depends on, that's why you've got to be active. This is not a passive activity. Even on LiveScope, this is not a passive activity in my opinion. I'm always reaching down and just making minor adjustments.
Okay.
The whole idea is to get it set close. So the ghost reject, we can put this on auto.
Oh, that changed a lot.
And what it's doing is it's constantly varying the gains, trying to even
Well, why
further.
wouldn't you keep it on there?
Well, Austin, make a cast. And with some software updates, they've absolutely made this much better.
Okay. Okay.
So you can definitely run that on auto. You just have to watch it. It's the first setting I'm going to take off. If all of a sudden I start noticing that like inside this, 25-foot range right here for this depth, I'm starting to notice my bait's disappearing.
Okay, yeah, take it off then.
Take it off because it's still.
I don't want that. I'd rather deal with the ghost tree than disappearing fish.
Well, and what we can do is we can put it on medium.
Okay.
So it's not constantly, at least set it on something that is constant, because then auto, it's going to constantly run up and down. This is where I'm kind of an anti-auto guy because I don't want these units being too active. I want to set it how I want it and then learn from there.
So like for me, would you recommend off?
Off or low.
Okay, so just put it on low then. We'll call it good.
And you can see as we get further and further out,
Yep,
and
it goes way away.
Exactly.
We're in real shallow water.
We were in super shallow water up there from that standpoint, and it's still there.
Yep.
So TVG.
What does that stand for? Time varying gain?
Yep.
That was my first guess.
Yep, that's exactly right. And you see that we created this dark spot. Now I went high. I want to maximize it. If I'm in deep water, and when I say deep water, I'm saying I'm only going to run this in high if I'm in like 60 foot, if I'm fishing 60 foot or deeper.
Okay.
Medium is maybe that 40 to 60, low 20 to 40,
Okay.
Less than 20, I'm not even going to turn it on because, and especially also if we're today, in this pocket, it's calm, but if you're out there on the Great Lakes and you're going up and down,
Yep.
What it's trying to do is basically, it's trying to build up to send a burst of a signal when it's the deepest point, the transducer is the deepest in the water. Because as a wave comes up and down like this, if the transducer is high and it shoots, there's actually going to be a valley of air that transducer cannot see the bottom. And it cannot transmit out of water into air back into water. And so it tries to basically vary it, say, okay, now burst when I'm down here to get the best picture, and then not as many bursts of a signal up at the top of that.
Okay, so all that to say this, do I need to mess with that or should I just set it on that 20 to 40?
So in typical Matt fashion, Scott, don't explain it, just turn it off.
No, I like the explaining. We're all about explaining in today.
Yeah, and so for you, I'm going to tell you to turn it off.
Okay.
From that,
yeah,
to get started from there. So the install, again, we need to calibrate the compass.
We could do that later.
Yeah, and we do that later. Focus auto fresh. I will tell you this. So right now, typically this is one of the few settings I do allow to run on auto.
Yep.
But if I'm really having to target fish way out there and maybe I'm starting to lose them at the bottom, I will actually play with this just a little bit. Yes, I'm going to break my stitching here, but it gives me a little bit better separation out there at distance.
I see what you're saying. So
but most of the time it's just on auto fresh.
Okay, perfect. I'm good with that. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah. So then now that I've done this for you, Matt, you see the star with 3 dots. Now what's cool about this, If you're running the Ultra 2 Echo Map series or
What is this?
This is a GPS map 1643. So any of the GPS map families going back to as far back as I can remember, or the Ultra 2 Echo Map family now have this feature. And what you do is this is our normal menu, and this is just the star with the 3 dots.
Yep.
And these are factory presets, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna save this. We're gonna call this SP, I'll just call it SP, you know what that means.
Scott Palmer.
Scott Palmer. And we're gonna include all these. I can go through and exclude everything, I don't really care. And what it's doing is, if I include this, it's saying, include the current setting of the gain of 72%.
So now you're going to do a deep water setting, shallow set, like that whole thing.
Correct.
And you can go through and just vary it on it, and then you can go down and you can just hit it, and then boom, instead of having to go through and change each one, it automatically goes to those settings.
Correct. So
perfect.
You see what I did there? I screwed everything up. If I come in here and I just hit SP, boom, it takes it right back.
Oh, that's freaking awesome.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we can do that later.
We can do that. We can finish setting that up.
So this was the other thing that I noticed. So when you go down, like, will I have that on that, or is that something that we can?
So this will be part of the calibration of the.
Okay,
compass.
so that'll change it.
We need to do that.
So I'm pretty much good to go.
You're pretty much good to go. We're finished setting up your presets.
Yep.
Now we'll want to go into perspective as well, like we typically do.
We can save that for another show.
Yeah. So you're at the basic level, ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
So I guess I need to go.
I was happy with how mine was right on it. Let's take a quick commercial break, and when we jump back, I'm gonna put the mic on Austin,
okay.
And then I want you guys to kind of go through setting up a lot more casting, a lot more to make sure that your transducer is dialed in perfectly with where you're casting.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, we are with Scott Palmer from the Bass Tank on the water, also with Open EQ angler Austin Cranford. There's Austin's boats. Scott, owner of the Bass Tank. You can go to thebasstank.com. All sorts of, talk about all the stuff that you guys offer there. It's everything from installation to proprietary stuff to
any of them 3 major brands: Humminbird, Lowrance, Garmin for sure, Power Pole, anything you can imagine from a boat standpoint. Obviously, we carry batteries, Pro Guide batteries. We've had great luck with them. We carry the beat down mounts. And then, we've started carrying some of the other blingy stuff, if you will. Yep. Trims, switches, and the steer stops, yep. Motor toters. Pretty much anything you need for your boat, we can handle it. And then we can also install it as well.
Beautiful. BTL on the water. We'll be back right after this.
Your early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
There we go. All right, we should be good. All right, we're back. All right, we're back. We are now in Austin's boat. I got Austin and Scott mic'd up, so I'm going to stand back and let him dial in Austin's rig. I think he has the same unit that I have in my boat, correct, Scott?
Yes, exactly.
The only thing is Quest trolling motor. Kind of run through how you're dialing it in as far as a from a target, and that you're dialed in on that perspective, because I know that's something that a lot of people have issues with.
100%. So Austin has already been out here playing with his just a little bit. but we're going to go through some settings just like we did with Matt's. But as much with his, I want to make sure that this transducer is precise for his casting. So right now, Austin, you're running your gain at 66%. You played with scope enough to say have your own preferences, but I'm going to make a few adjustments, and if you tell me you don't like it, you don't like it, we go back. That's what we get to do today. So I'm going to bump this up around 72% there. Our depth, just for the cause of making our cast, I'm going to lower our range for the time being.
Okay.
I don't like changing the depth range too much, because what'll happen is if I'm out in 30 feet and you get to chasing these fish, look around, all of a sudden you step up in a 10 and people reach down there and they change the depth, all of a sudden my proportions change.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will give up some of my screen to keep my proportions the same when I'm running around, because I'm moving so much from chasing fish. From the appearance standpoint, see, you're already ran at color scheme or color gain already up at 90%. So you got ahead of me, but that's quite all right. Layout, you've already set this.
I don't actually. Is that grid? Has it always been? Yeah, I don't like the grid.
See, I don't like the grid either. So all we do is we'll come in here into the layout and just the grid, take it off, which is how I run mine. I don't like the grid either. The reverse range, you've got that completely hidden.
Mm-hmm.
On Matt's boat, he liked his.
I like a little bit of reverse range
right
on it.
But, and this is again, well, it's personal preferences. You've got yours completely, but this is the transducer now. This is directly below the boat. So if a fish goes behind the boat, you won't see it. But that's how it has to swim literally directly underneath it. So ghost reject, you're running it off already. And you can see we're out here in deeper water, very, very light ghost tree, and it's just an artifact, and it's really not even there. Noise reject medium. You see if I turn that off, you can see where this is where the noise reject filtered that ghost tree out as well. So if we went back to medium, you see how it softens it up. So that is definitely something you can play with. Again, I'm a non-noise reject guy. I like it off, but that's just a personal preference from a cleaner screen. So Austin, make a cast for me.
Okay, so it should be right on it right there. There we are. I probably need to change my install depth too, because I'm not really seeing the splash,
Correct.
And talk about how key being able to see that splash is. I feel like that's the most underrated thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's
the most important thing as far as maximizing your efficiency.
Yeah, and say like you got a target like that right there. If you don't see the splash, then you're off. There we go. There's the splash. Just like that. Just changing the install depth right there. You see the splash up top, and then the bait drop down. Maybe I just needed to change my install. Let me make a little bit further cast. Okay, so we saw that. Now we're trying to find the bait. See, that's where, so I don't know if because how you were talking about earlier, how you angle it into your cast.
Yep.
So it seems like it further distances.
Yep, see, because you're right now, you're mounted on the left.
Yep.
And that's what I was saying for me, I'm going to mount mine on the left because I swing into it. Swinging into the right, so go a little bit further to the left on your cast. So you can see that point straight up there.
Yep.
Aim just to like you're going to try to throw into the cove just to the left, like you're going to try to hit 5 feet to the left of that point, if that makes sense. And
there was a splash, and then it's there. Yeah. So if I'm across the beam, it comes out good.
Yep. So what we might want to do for yours, we might want to just flip yours to the right-hand side.
Okay.
Because your natural cast is coming in this way.
Yeah.
As opposed to mounted on the left.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I think that's what we need to do.
Basically, he's been used for 3 years to casting 1 degree off to the right. Now he's casting.
Now he's having to relearn to try to cast left, and instead of fighting that, let's go with your natural cast.
Yeah.
And if I can pull this up. you see what we're talking about here, he's on the left side. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna flip that around on the right-hand side. So that will bring that back into his natural cast, you know, casting angle. And this matters. I mean, this is, again, one of those underrated things what people don't think about is just that little bit and how precise this is. And you can be off that much just because you're coming into the wrong side. Again, I'm left, so I want to be left. He's going right, so you want to be on the right-hand side for that. So I think that's a real simple fix. We'll just flip it around.
I think that's exactly what it is, because it feels like
it feels
barely off, and it's just, you know, that distance on the shaft.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, I don't know.
So, is he pretty much set up?
He's pretty much set up. We just need to flip that around.
Head to that brush pile.
Okay.
Austin, and I just want to watch kind of like.
And Austin, while you're doing that, I'm going to set you up your preset just like you did.
Went ahead. So this brush pile up here, it's always got fish in it. Okay. So let's. Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to have Austin go to a piece of structure that doesn't move, which is the best way to set this stuff up, because you know exactly what you're looking at. And then, you know, based on your cast, if it's off, if it's not, because you know where that piece of structure is. You could see it. You can see it on the grab. You can visually see it. And what Scott's going to do is make adjustments as Austin fishes for that piece of coverage. So talk us through this then.
All right. So as we can see this coming in here, and this is where
Behind it.
can you yeah. I'll wait till we
Wheel spin around.
Have you ever had someone go in the water on BTL before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not live. Oh, fall
live,
in?
live.
Not
yeah.
fall in.
Okay. Because I feel like today is the day. Like I'm just, you know, he's gonna swing around here. I'll hold on to this old beat now. This is gonna be my.
Yeah.
This is what's gonna keep me from going in.
Let me make a circle around. We want to get on the downwind side of the brush pile always.
Yep.
Or else you
Absolutely.
just blow over the top of it. Unless you have power brakes, which I do not.
I cannot.
So we're gonna spin around, get about 60 feet from it, and then try and spin.
So this is where most people's pictures start, you know, as the default. You can see how soft that is, and he's looking right at it. But as we run this up here to that 90%, you see how much more it's closed, and you can see that fish that's hiding in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if Austin get him to come out or not, but that's up to Austin. Yeah,
It's probably a jig fish.
probably is.
I got a jig right here.
And so then you can see when we run this color limit up. Some people would say that's better, but I'll show you what's not so better.
Okay.
Not so better? That's fantastic English. Yeah.
That looks just atrocious.
Yeah, it is. But see, as we run this down, it does take an edge off. So like I said, you know, 10 to 20% is all I'm ever going to run this color limit.
Okay.
Typically, I run at default. It's very minor.
See my jig there on the bottom?
All right, so we're looking to be able to see it when it falls, when it hits the water.
He was hiding behind the screen at that time.
Yep.
So Austin, you've got the speed up here.
Yeah, I don't want the speed. I don't.
So this is in the overlay data. So we've got the water temp.
I do want the water temp. Can we trade the water temp for the speed?
100%.
There we go.
Do you want your depth up there?
No,
Okay.
I don't want the depth.
Is there anything else you want up there?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back in the layout. We've got on-screen control. We've got reverse range hidden. Compressed range is off. Grid overlay off. Noise reject, you're going to run medium. Ghost reject off. TBG off. Pretty well there. We've got our install depth down. Have you calibrated the compass on this one?
No,
yet?
I
Okay.
haven't.
So it kind of doesn't look like it. Stabilization, again, typically you can run that on.
Sean wants to know, is it true that tungsten gives a harder return?
Absolutely. Yep. You
Yep.
can definitely tell the difference. I don't think I have anything tungsten on my deck right now, but especially like with a minnow, the head, if it's tungsten, you can really, really see it pop.
The factors that are gonna give you a better return, tungsten, like you said, more dense, so the signal doesn't penetrate. Also, the design of it. You know, if you've got think of like the old glass beads that we use Carolina rig with. Some of them are smooth, and other them have like a prism, like a disco ball. They've got cut sides to it. Those will actually give off a really good return because they deflect the beam. Even though the beam can penetrate it, they're made of plastic or glass, but the beam does not directly reflect off of it. So you'll see like almost like a flare off of it. And then the others, like if you've got a head that's maybe concave a little bit, you know, a flatter head or a concave head, you'll get a better reflection from that. But just your standard heads, tungsten is always going to give you a better return, just because of the density from that standpoint.
I know there's a brush pile over here. I think so. Okay. See, I didn't transfer when I got the new.
I was just zooming out here, so we got a ball of bait. So we're out here 120 feet being able to search, right? Now this may not be what you actually run it at, but we can see at distance, we can see this out here. Now you may not fish that. You may run this in.
There we go. Found him. Back us up. There's one back there. Let's drop a jig in there. See that one on the front side? See if I can get to him. He sees it.
You're happy with that though?
Yes, that looks phenomenal.
We just need to flip.
Yeah,
the
that's I guarantee that's the only thing. The screen is, I mean, when you get a hard return on it, you can just see that bait just pop.
Yeah.
Like just like that. It's almost white.
Yeah.
There's one right there. He disappeared. Oh, he's looking at it.
Anything else we've been liking?
Realistically, that's it. You know, Austin's going to use the just standard mount because he doesn't really like perspective, as he told me. So that's totally fine. Again, that's a personal preference. If you're not going to use perspective, why have that mount there? We need to set your perspective up, but we can certainly do that after the fact. That's pretty much what you and I do every year. So I don't know if there's anything else we have to go unless there's a question that I just need expressing that we need to answer.
No. All right. I'm going to hand this back to Austin real quick when he reels in, and then we'll wrap this thing up, guys. Greatly appreciate it. One of the cool things about BTL is you get to work with companies that you have personal relationships with. That's definitely the case with the Bass Tank. Actually, BTL's been with them since their inception, and this is exactly what we would have done had we not been live on BTL. Yep. I've done this every single year with Scott. When I went to the Perspective last year, we literally sat there, power pulled down on a little lake next to the Bass Tank, and I'd make a cast and he'd make an adjustment, and I'd make a cast and he'd make the adjustment. Same thing. Put a really good pro staff together this year. Obviously, Justin Hamner, defending Bassmaster Classic champ on it, adding Brian Smith, West Coast Hammer. You have Andrew Loberg, Elite Series rookie. You have some local guys. You also have Matt Adams, who was the first man out. He was in BTL, and you'll see some of these guys kind of cycle through BTL, but didn't want to leave anyone out. Any other? I put that on you, but that's what I'll say. I'll name those, and then if there's anyone else, it's on me.
And and then we've had guys like Daryl Gleason,
Yep.
open fisherman. He's expecting to return back with us this year. And so then we got a lot of just local guys that are just good friends of the bass tank. So I'm really excited about our team this year. I think we've got a good group of guys that share my vision and are good fishermen and good people. So
and like I said, check it out at thebasstank.com. There's a lot more to this than you just install it, you point, you cast, and you catch. Hopefully that kind of shows it. If you have any questions, email me, matt@basszone.com. Check things out at thebasstank.com. And there's a little red button right there that says end. You see that, Austin? Yep. All right, we're going to hit that. Thanks for tuning it. And this is another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. Go back, listen to this morning show and this show. You have over 3 hours of live streaming content with Todd Castledine, Frank Scalish, Scott Palmer, an hour on the water, 2 hours in the studio. We'll be back at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. I think so. It kind of depends because we're trying to get in before this cold. But that's all we got. Thanks for jumping on. See ya.